Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we talk about all things USC. And this week, we actually get to talk about a win. That's a nice change of pace. I'm still off-site, coming from the hidden WeAreSC bunker just north of Mexico. This will be my last week here, but here I am. And okay, guys, usual crew. I'm not going to introduce you because you've probably seen it, unless you're an Oregon fan that was directed our way from the talk on Twitter about our show. In which case, welcome, Oregon fans, and I'm happy they're still letting prisoners use the internet. Okay,
they can find this show, but they can't find your X handle. That's what's so funny.
Yeah, well, the truth is, I don't ever look at that. I don't use it. I don't read it. So even if they found it and said a bunch of stuff, I'd never see it. But whatever. Welcome. And OU fans, if you're still hanging out, I don't know if you are. You guys are losing too. Maybe you've gotten tired of it all. Okay, let's get going. The big topic, it seems to me, is Jayden Maiava. Finally got a start, and let's assess it. What do we think about the Maiava era game one? Good grade, bad grade, mixed grade? How do we feel about the future? Mark Holken, why don't you start us off?
I like Eric's grade that he gave on the WeAreSC site. I would give him B-, C+ if I'm in a negative mood. But what Jayden displayed was some good, some bad, a lot of potential, and I think that's what we should really be focused on. We've all heard it, we've all said it before. It's better to be lucky than good at times. Jayden was really lucky in this game. He had some great throws. He had some throws that, again, we were sitting up there in the press box, and I'm sure you're watching the game thinking, no, don't do that. Okay, Deuce caught it. That's a good throw. But there was a lot of moments. He had that pick six, obviously the fumble on the USC sideline as well. It wasn't the way I think everyone wanted his start to go, but he did enough. You saw what he's capable of. That 4th and 1 call, does Lincoln Riley have the confidence to do it with Miller Moss? I don't know, maybe, probably not. But what we saw from Jayden is his potential. I think we also got the answer why Lincoln Riley waited 9 weeks to make the switch. When he says, Miller and Jayden's, skill set aren't that different from each other, I think he was referring to the propensity to, turn the ball over. So I think that was the answer that probably came out from this. Overall, though, yeah, we talked about what did he need to do for USC to win this game? Throw for 250, run for 50. He got close to running for 50 with 20 yards, I guess, but he met the criteria to help USC get across the finish line and win a close one-score contest, which they haven't been good at this year. So you saw what Jayden was able to do. The defense was able to make plays when they needed to make plays, including getting a couple of interceptions on their own. The one to steal the game at the end. But yeah, Jayden, I'll give him a B-. Again, I'm basing this off of what he did and what he's probably capable of doing once he starts making better decisions with the ball.
So, Eric, Mark is promoting the grades you gave after the game. Interesting grades, because you got a lot of pretty decent grades for an offense that scored 28 and gave up 10. So it's an offense that basically was plus 18. A lot of very good grades. You were in a positive mood. I guess we don't do that for you. So let's start with that, grade that first performance, but also let's talk about potential, because I think Mark is right. There's something there.
Yeah, the issue with Jayden was he was the best quarterback for both teams on Saturday. And so that's why his grade got hit so hard. When the running backs were great, I thought the wide receivers were good in that one, and the tight ends didn't catch a lot of passes. But again, when you run like that and tight ends are on the field for that much, they're doing something in the run game there. So I think that was it. Is Jayden took like a heavy brunt of why the offense didn't score and why Nebraska scored more than half their points in that game. So that's I think the hope is that you just saw Jayden Maiava's worst game at USC. I think that's the hope is for everybody. Your first game's your worst game. You get better and better and better and better. You go back to Miller Moss's first game, and that was maybe not his best game at USC with all the everything in it, but certainly one of them. And then you saw kind of some warts and issues show up this year. So I think that's the hope with Jayden is you get some of that stuff out. Hey, that throw that you made earlier, just can't do it. Can't do it. The way you're holding the ball when you're scrambling out to the side, can't do it. Just like that's done. Now, is there a chance that that's him? And it happens again against UCLA. It happens against Notre Dame. I think so. I think there's a chance that he's got a few of those in him, and it's going to be each game. But the throws that he made, and what I think you see is the fight that he still had. Right, makes a huge mistake, comes back out, touchdown drive, touchdown drive. At the end, the fumble leads them to what should have been a field goal, and then next possession, long, good touchdown drive. Good decision to pitch on the 4th and 1. Good decision to keep on the touchdown at the end. So the ability to bounce back, I thought was good and play kind of in that situation against a Nebraska team that was never going to score 40 points, but had been fine defensively in all but one game this year, really. And a team that should have beat Ohio State at Ohio State this year. So like Nebraska had some issues, but that's a solid defense to go out and do what he did again. So I think there's a lot of positives to take from it, but certainly you're not saying, oh, he should have done this week 1 and Jayden should have been the starter and there were no issues going forward. But I think UCLA is more frustrated having to prepare for Jayden Maiava offense this year than maybe they would have been having to prepare for a Miller Moss offense going into this game.
Yeah, that seems right. You know, I hate to crow about my own successes, but guys, I nailed our prediction on this one. I not only nailed the winning score, but I also nailed that Maiava would have success throwing a deep ball and that he would throw a horrific pick. So I pretty much nailed the entire game. So it seems to me that Miller Moss got replaced really for 2 primary reasons, and then maybe a third reason that was a little less obvious. Miller was a liability in the run game. He threw way too many devastating game-turning interceptions. And he wasn't a great deep ball thrower. We know one thing, and that is that Jayden Maiava is not going to be a liability in the run game. And when I say the run game, I don't only mean quarterback runs, although that helps. Both quarterback design runs. You now have the ability to do things like that speed option on 4th and 1, which is a fantastic call. You have somebody who's going to keep the read option more often. But not just quarterback runs, also the runs from your halfback. Because if the quarterback doesn't keep it on the read option, if the quarterback has no threat to keep the ball, then that allows the backside defensive end to come crashing down over and over again. And he's not blocked in most of those plays. He's not blocked. You're expecting him to stay home. And with Miller Moss, he never did because he didn't have to. So that problem solved. The problem with the critical, horrific, awful interceptions and turnovers, obviously that problem didn't go away. The pick 6 was bad, but the fumble was horrific. You can't do that. And I'm sure Jayden Maiava knows you can't do that. But he didn't protect the ball. You have to protect the ball. So we'll see going forward whether or not he can do a better job than Miller Moss at avoiding devastating turnovers. But I do like his arm, and I like his ability to pose problems for a defense. I don't know how good he's going to get, but his ceiling is much, much higher than Miller Moss's. That's just the reality. And if he can get there, then we'll be in good shape. He does pose problems for UCLA and Notre Dame that Miller did not. So it wasn't a perfect outing, obviously, but he did some good things. He showed a lot of potential. He's a talented kid. If he gets better with experience, then we may be onto something pretty valuable here. I suppose we'll find out.
One of the things that I think helped his outing, his production, was Lincoln Riley. You know, and we talk about this all the time, having a more balanced offense. You can't be upset about the pass to run ratio. I mean, what was it, 36 to 32, 33, whatever that number was? I mean, we've been begging that type of balance all season long. All of a sudden, you're going to help out your quarterback in his first game out. Again, this isn't a tribalism thing where I'm trying to say, well, Miller got the short end of the stick. I'm just wondering, why did you make that type of play calling with a new starting quarterback?
Well, maybe because with Jayden Maiava's ability to run the ball and threat to run the ball, that you're actually blocking that defensive end, and so you have an extra blocker in the game. I mean, that is a huge deal, especially on those read option plays. And I don't know how often it's a read option. It may be that most of the time Lincoln Riley is telling the quarterback to keep to hand it off. But even if he's doing that, the defensive end doesn't know that. And so with Jayden Maiava in there, he does have to worry that Maiava will keep it and break contain and make a big play. So I think that may be part of it. And if so, then that's an important part. So interestingly enough, we have this issue where you have a more of a pocket guy who Miller Moss could move around in the pocket and did, right? He moved around in the pocket pretty well, avoiding sacks. You have a guy who can move around a little bit in the pocket, but isn't really a runner with a quarterback who is much more likely to pull it down and make plays with his feet. That was happening on the field Saturday. Also this weekend, the same thing is going down when it comes to USC quarterback recruits, with Juju Lewis now apparently out and Houston Longstreet in. Longstreet, of course, is the kid from Corona Centennial, also a five-star quarterback and a really fantastic athlete with a huge arm. I don't know that he's as polished as Juju is. In fact, I know he's not. But if you're talking about ceiling again, he seems to have a ceiling at least as high. So let's talk about this. Eric, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on this quarterback switch out? How long do you think it's been in the works? Is this a good thing for USC? And what do you think is the long-term repercussions of this move?
Yeah, I do not think there's a single negative for USC in this entire thing. I mean, I think that it was calculated in kind of how it was done. Like a lot of fans, I think, and fans of recruiting, like to think, you know who a guy is his sophomore year, and that's a guy you have to get, and it can't be fluid, and things can't change throughout the process. And I think this was one of those situations where, as it went along, I think you liked Longstreet more. As the recruiting process went along, maybe you disliked more of how Julian Lewis was handling things. And those two things, when they come to a head, it makes kind of an easy solution. Now, the fact that Longstreet is a Southern California recruit, I think, is big in moving forward. And what I think is maybe the same sort of size in terms of how big it is to get him is that I don't think he shows up saying, I'm your day one starter as a true freshman, or I'm out of here. And I'm not saying that Julian Lewis was going to say that or was demanding that, but I think potentially there's more unease in keeping a Julian Lewis who's coming a long way from home to go to USC if he's not playing. The local guy who kind of understands, yeah, I'm still kind of developing, still sort of rising. There's a guy there I can sit, learn, and I'm here at home. That's going to work better. That's going to work better long term. Now you see the numbers, right? You see the numbers of 5-star, 4-star quarterback commits who end up transferring. It's huge. So at this point, you can't say anything is safe. I mean, no quarterback who signs anywhere is absolutely going to play there. But you absolutely feel better about Houston Longstreet being sort of a long-term investment, and a guy who's going to stick, and a guy who's going to play, and a guy who has an unbelievable arm for Lincoln Riley to sort of build an offense around, and that running ability. So no, not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all with that, if you want to call it a trade. And I do think USC has been, when it sort of popped up, I think August, right? That they're taking a looking around. I mean, that's Lincoln Riley goes all in on one quarterback. If he's starting to look around and start looking at another guy, there's a thought maybe that's the quarterback that he's going in on. So I think it worked out well for USC.
Mark, what do you think? Good switch?
Great switch. Look, this has been in the works. I guess we can say it started in the spring. I don't care who you are. If you're not interested in coming to USC, you do not show up to a spring practice at 5 a.m. in the morning for a 5:30 start when you know that you're committing to a school just a few days later. So that's when this process started. And Erica's right. August creeped around. It's like, why is Juju still flirting with other schools? Why is he still taking trips? At that point, I think Lincoln Riley said, you know what? Let's go all in. Let's get the Longstreets back on campus as many times as possible. And Lincoln Riley's getting a lot of credit for this. Luke Heward gets a ton of credit for this switch, for this commitment. I mean, he's been talking to Huson since he was in 9th grade when he was at Inglewood High School, and he just kept up the communication process. Didn't let that get away from him. And you see what happened. Again, his upside is tremendous. He's got a live arm. I went out there to the Elite 11 finals in Torrance, and I was like, whoa, that dude could spin it. And I think objectively speaking, he had a better tournament than Julian Lewis in that environment as well. So he's bigger, he's stronger. I think he fits the criteria more that what Lincoln Riley is looking for. And what Eric touched on is absolutely correct. Let's just assume that Jayden Maiava is going to finish out the season as a starter. Next year, he's going to go in as the front runner to be the starter. Huson can come in now, learn the product, sit behind Jayden for a year, and then if Ryder Lyons is the quarterback in the 2026 class, you don't expect him until 2027 anyways, so you now have a nice timeline. Everybody kind of understands what the anticipation level is, the expectation, when you should start to really consider, all right, this is my time. So yeah, you're keeping one of the local studs home. You're not letting him leave the state again. And that's going to open the eyes. That's going to help with local recruiting some more. But again, the best part about this is, for me, USC was they were proactive. They weren't reacting to the situation. I've been talking about this for a while now. I've never been enthralled with Julian Lewis. Not that he's a bad person or that he doesn't have talent. It was just kind of the behind the scenes stuff. And the way it played out, it's like, you know what? Good luck to you. Enjoy wherever you decide to go. But it was obvious to me that he was using USC to find that right spot to slide and say, you know what? I'm ready to start. I don't think any quarterback should be coming into college making stipulations, kind of demanding the situation. I wasn't happy when Eli Manning did it coming out of college, going into the NFL. I am thoroughly opposed to it. High school kids coming into college. Draw a line, let everybody know who's in charge. And what Huson said is, look, Lincoln Riley, he's got 5 quarterbacks starting in the NFL right now. 4 of them have Heismans. Why not stay home and take advantage of that? It's a good thing. USC, they were proactive. They did not allow themselves to look like they're being stuck looking for a quarterback. And I know what happened real bang, bang like that. Nevertheless, I like the fact that USC pulled the trigger first.
Yeah, it's good for Boise State too, right? Because now they know who they need to recruit. Well, here's the thing about it. We don't know who's going to turn out to be the better quarterback between Longstreet. I don't know that anybody knows that yet. Longstreet has better physical tools. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Bigger, faster, much stronger arm. But there's more to playing quarterback than that, and it may be that Julian Lewis turns out to be exceptional because of his accuracy and his ability to read a defense and make good decisions. I don't think anybody knows. What we do know is that Lincoln Riley's reputation as a quarterback guru has survived the first 10 games of this season and the 5-5 start, because he traded out one 5-star quarterback for another. And I think we all suspect he's going to get a commitment from another 5-star quarterback that'll show up 2 years after that. So he's still able to recruit the sorts of players that you want to run this offense. I'm excited to see what Longstreet can do. He is an incredible athlete. And I mean, he might have a Caleb Williams type arm. I mean, he really can sling it, and he moves well. And these days, unless you have Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, you have a guy who's just reading defenses, always gets the ball out on time, always puts it in the right spot. Unless you have a pocket guy like that, I just think there are too many advantages to having a guy who can beat you with his feet. And we saw that plenty with Caleb Williams, where his feet were able to make things happen that a quarterback who can't move just can't make. And so I think it's really good to have a guy who can move, and Longstreet can move. He's a good athlete. So I don't know who's going to be better. I don't know whether Lincoln Riley made this move because he legitimately concluded that Longstreet was the better prospect, or because he just got tired of Lewis. Lewis is the guy that proposes to his fiance and ends up hanging out with 6 different girls over the next 6 months while the wedding's still on. I mean, at some point, you just got to say, okay, I understand you were taking trips, but here we are just a few weeks before signing day. You're supposed to be the crowning jewel of the class. You're supposed to be the leader of the class, and you can't help but travel all over the country and talk to other teams. So at some point, that nonsense has to stop, and so it probably makes sense that it did. So we'll see who's going to be better, but I'm excited about Longstreet. I think he looks like a fantastic prospect, and I still believe Lincoln Riley's a great developer quarterback. So I think he's come to the right place. Speaking of the right place, 2 games left this year, guys. It's the 2 rivalry games. I mean, if you're going to go to 2 games all year, these are the 2. You go see USC, UCLA in the Rose Bowl, a beautiful setting. Late, it's going to be at night. I like it better when it's during the day and you can see the mountains. But a beautiful setting, a huge rivalry game. You've got the Irish, the Coliseum after that. That's going to be an enormous game. Notre Dame probably playing for a spot in the playoff. USC playing for pride and to knock off their hated rival. If you want to see either one of these games, go to Game Time, download the app, go to Game Time, look for tickets. Lots of tickets available, good prices. You get if this is your first purchase there, you type in On3, you get $20 off. It's a good deal. There's some restrictions that apply on that discount, and I don't know what they are, but I know I got the discount when I used it, so I suspect you will too. So go to Game Time, show up at the games. The season's been tough. It's been a slog, but it really would be nice if USC could have a home field advantage against the Irish in 2 weeks. That'd be a really nice thing. And I know USC fans don't care enough about that to show up or to be loud. But there have been times, not as often as it happens at Texas A&M or LSU or these other stadiums where, people stand up and scream. But there have been times when the Coliseum actually got really live and USC had a home field advantage and it helped them. It'd be nice if in 2 weeks we can have the same thing. That would be great. We'll talk more about Notre Dame next week, but beating the Irish is important. So go show up, go to Game Time, show up, say hello to me at the game, say hello to Mark, say hello to Eric if you want, but Eric is very uppity. I don't know if he'll talk to you. Okay, guys, question number 3. I am founding the Woody Marks Appreciation Club.
Good club.
I thought this guy was going to be a good player. He's fantastic. And he gets better every week. He's already over 1,000 yards. I know UCLA and Notre Dame both have good run defenses. I bet he has success against both of them too. He doesn't require much of a hole. He's shifty. He's tough. He catches the ball out of the backfield. Fantastic. So, 1, give me your thoughts on Woody Marks. I know they're all going to be positive because what else could they be? But 2, I'm curious, Woody Marks is USC's best running back since who? Mark Holkin.
We know that he's USC's first 1,000-yard rusher since Ronald Jones, and that's going back, 7, 8 years? Woody's really good. I knew he was good coming in. I did not know he had this ability to run between the tackles like he does. I mean, to me, he's got that. He's got enough power, and then when he gets through that initial hole, he's got burst. He could put his foot in the ground, and he's gone. That's an impressive thing. The NFL is going to love him, especially with the way he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, we don't see him do a whole lot of pass protection, but if that's what you're asking him to do, that's probably not his strength. But as far as running the ball, that dude is tough as nails. He can take a hit. He's not afraid of contact. Apparently, he was playing with the flu against Nebraska. And to have his best career game when you're sick like that and to cross that 1,000-yard threshold, yeah, I'm right there with you, Chris. Let's give Woody Marks let's get him an award somehow, some way. And we've talked about Marshawn Lloyd and Travis Dye and the guys who have come through the transfer portal. He's the best of the three. And that's saying a lot because Travis Dye was such a great, not what he did on the field, but also what he did in the locker room. Marshawn Lloyd just looked like your prototypical NFL running back. Woody isn't quite as big. He doesn't look like your prototypical guy, but he plays with that tenacity. I mean, he's somebody you want on your team. And he's so humble about it too. I mean, he does not have a big head. He is just a humble, give me the ball, let me go to work, and you'll like the results when we're done. Great ball security, runs with power, can run with finesse, got quick feet, can catch the ball in the backfield. Probably the offensive MVP of the year.
Yeah, I think that's right. Eric, what do you think?
Ronald Jones is the right call. I think he's the best since Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones, that breakaway speed and the ability in open space that Ronald Jones had is different than Woody Marks. Woody Marks is not good enough in those two things. When he gets into the second level, he doesn't make enough guys miss, and then the long speed isn't there. Everything between him touching the ball and that is unbelievable. Like his ability to just get positive yardage right now, get through small holes between the tackles, it's really impressive. And just having a back where if you give it to him, something's going to happen. Like he'll find something, he'll make something positive, and he's not going to kill you when he gets the ball. And he's been great. He's been great. And I do think that there is something to when Lincoln Riley says Quentin Joyner's there. I just can't. I want every time we look like, yeah, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Like keep him out on the field. And you'd love to see Quentin get more and more, but I do understand that it's tough to bring Woody Marks off because you just know what you're gonna get. You know what you're gonna get every time he touches it, every time he runs a route, all of that. And so yeah, he's been really fun. He's been really fun to watch, and unlocking him a little bit more with Jayden in there and with some of the run wrinkles that they had against Nebraska. I think that's going to be something where you mentioned it. UCLA's run defense great this year. Notre Dame's run defense good this year, and so it's going to be a challenge there. But I think he'll keep producing.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, USC ran the ball pretty well against Penn State. They ran the ball pretty well against Nebraska. Both teams had very solid run defenses. I think USC is going to be able to run the ball against both these teams. And I think largely it's because of Woody Marks. I'm with you, Eric, both in terms of he's the best back since Ronald Jones and in terms of I think there's some areas he's better than Jones. He's a better pass catcher than Jones. I think he's more consistent. I think he's more consistent near the line of scrimmage than Jones was. Finding a small crease and picking up 6 yards. I think he does that really well. He does not have Jones's top end speed. He doesn't have Reggie's top end speed. There are plays where he gets in the secondary where those guys would have just separated, and he can't do it. But he's a fantastic back. He is a great pass catcher. Unbelievably reliable catching the ball out of the backfield, and just an excellent player. And by the way, good job by the USC coaching staff. This isn't a guy who was a 1,000-yard rusher in his previous stop. I think he had 400 something yards last year. He was catching a lot of passes, but he wasn't putting up big rushing yards. But they saw this guy in film and said, this is a guy who can help us. And he has. And I'm with you. I thought Marshawn was fantastic. I thought that Travis Dye was fantastic for a lot of reasons. Marks is better, and he is the best back on the team, and I don't think it's all that close right now. That doesn't mean that Quentin Joyner's not going to have his time. Quentin Joyner's a different back. He is more of a one cut and go kind of guy. He's a little less shifty, a little bigger, a little stronger, probably better top end speed if I had to guess. He'll have his moment, but right now Woody Marks is the guy, and he's performing every week, and it's just fun to watch. Okay, we've been focused all on offense. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. Nebraska scored 20 points, 10 against the defense, and it's not a great Nebraska offense. I think we all know that. We knew it coming in. But still, they held them to around 5 yards of play and a very small number of yards, somewhere around 300 yards and 20 points, even when you include this pick six, which we won't for these purposes. That all sounds pretty good. What do we think about the defensive performance Saturday? Go ahead, Eric.
It's what we've seen every week this entire year, basically. You are not getting pressure on the quarterback, and you are still finding a way to keep them sort of jarred up to where they're not running up a bunch of points, and you're keeping your offense absolutely in every single game where even a hint of a Lincoln Riley offense gets you a win. And it was the same thing against Nebraska. And Dylan Raiola is not a great quarterback yet, but there's some talent in there. That late third down throw when they're trying to come down and tie the game that beats that cover two look down the sideline. Dylan Raiola had some really impressive throws in that game. You had sort of the wrinkle of what does Dana Holgerson's addition do? So you had to deal with some of that stuff, and I know there was a little bit different kind of stuff in the pass game there. They were able to deal with that. The Nebraska run game hadn't been great all year. They were better than I think what USC wanted to do against that. But again, nothing hit for 50 yards, nothing hit for big touchdown runs or anything like that. And it was more solid defense. It's what you've come to expect from Danton Lynn's defense, where every offense goes in going, this is going to be a grind. This is going to be a grind to try to put up enough points to win. And that's what they did again. Kamari Ramsey coming back had a couple unbelievable plays. Jalen Smith was great again. So it's what we've seen. They're getting it done without difference makers up front, which is a really, really difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think outside of like the early part of the third quarter, I thought their tackling was great. There was that short little burst in there where it seemed like Nebraska had a little bit more energy behind them that USC was playing with. But look, Eric talked about all the points that we need to talk about. You're not getting enough pressure on the quarterbacks. I think part of that is scheme. You don't see a lot of blitzing from Danton Lynn. They're playing without some of their better players, which obviously doesn't help. But the secondary, such a huge improvement versus last year. You've got Jalen Smith, who Greedy Vance said it after the game. He goes, I don't know why anybody throws to his side of the field anymore, because he just makes plays. He's a physical, tough. He's great against the run, and you don't want to throw against him because he will run the route better than the wide receiver sometimes. I thought the linebackers played a really solid game for the most part. Usually when you're calling out Mason Cobb's name, it's not because he did something well. It's because he probably missed on a tackle. The only time you were calling out Mason's name was because it was like, oh, wow, did you see that play Mason just made? And he led the team in tackles as well. So I think from defensive line, linebacker, third level at secondary, they're doing a really good job this year. They're doing the job we wanted them to do. Just be good. You don't have to be great. Get off the field every now and then, and Lincoln Riley's offense will do the rest. One of these games this year, Lincoln Riley's offense will get into gear, and it'll look like the team we all thought we were going to get at the beginning of the season. Because USC's given up, 21 points a game. In this game against the Nebraska team that, again, is offensively deficient, the defense held them to 10 points. They're doing their job. Are they generating enough turnovers? No. Are they getting the quarterback? No. But when it gets to the red zone, they're pretty good. If you're playing defense in 2024 and you're only giving up 20 to 25 points a game, you've got a good defense. You've got a good defense. The fact that USC struggles to get 30 points is the problem this year. It's hard to believe that's where we are.
It is hard to believe. We thought this defensive staff was going to be good, and the more I watch this defense play, the higher my esteem for that defensive staff rises. I think this is just an unbelievably coached unit, and they make you earn everything. They make you earn everything, and they play discipline, they play smart, and they're aggressive. It is not a hugely talented group. It's just not. Most of the guys that are playing a lot are not going to be high NFL draft choices. But they're playing well every Saturday, giving the offense a chance to win if the offense just plays reasonably well. It's hard to expect too much more. I will say this, too. Doug Belk has done a fantastic job. Jalen Smith is a guy who's played a lot of football before Belk showed up. He didn't play like this. He had some good games. He also had some appalling games. I mean, really, he had some appalling games last year. What Doug Belk has done with Jalen Smith has been remarkable. Smith is a stud, absolutely reliable, a guy who's making plays. He's tackling well. He's covering well. Just a great football player. And I think Belk needs to get some credit for that. Smith does too. He's obviously worked very hard, but Doug Belk has done a tremendous job. And then you see what Coach Henne has done with an interior defensive line group that on paper, you look at that group and say, like, they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody. But those guys play well. They play well. They do a reasonable job of controlling the A and B gaps. They make you earn things in the run game. I mean, it's just a really well-coached unit, and I'm pleased as can be, especially because I think if USC is able to continue to recruit well on the defensive side of the ball, and I think they will, you hold this defensive staff together, you're going to get better every year. That's a really good group of coaches, and so congrats to them, and congrats to these guys, because a lot of these guys, not all of them, but a lot of them were playing on last year's defense, which was maybe the worst defense in the history of organized sport. And these guys worked hard. They've taken instruction and have really turned it around, and all turned into very solid football players. It's good to see.
The best is definitely ahead. I mean, the youth in that room right now, Cam Fountain's really starting to feel it. Sam Green. I saw Floyd Boucard standing next to Sam Green on the field after the game. Carlon Jones is a big young man. Floyd Boucard is bigger than Carlon Jones. I thought Sam was talking to maybe his dad or an older brother or somebody. I was like, whoa, that kid's a senior in high school? The best is yet to come, without a doubt.
Yeah, and USC just got another commit from an interior defensive lineman from Oklahoma. He's not a 5-star guy, but he's getting this 293 pounds. They took him from Oklahoma, and I trust Coach Henne's evaluation skills. So they're getting bodies up front, big guys. So, and they just got another one Saturday. So that's a good sign too.
And those are the spots where you need both those guys. Offensive line, defensive line. You need the high-end 5-star, high 4-star guys. You need the developmental 3-star guys too, where, hey, we'll see you in 3 years and we're going to coach you up, and you can't have them all like that, but you need them on both lines. Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely true. All right, before we leave Nebraska, anything else we should talk about? I can think of at least one thing, but somebody will probably bring it up. Anything else we should talk about Nebraska and what we saw on the field Saturday?
Now there's a bunch of pressure.
We don't talk about Eddie Triplisky enough. I mean, that too, Lincoln Riley made sure to give him a little bit of credibility. I don't know, speak up for him. That dude's field every time he touches it.
He's a stud. We talked about the Woody Marks being the best back since when. Maybe we should do the same thing here with punter. We have to go back to Stonehouse. I mean, how far do we have to go back? This guy's a stud.
You just have to go as far back as Tom Malone. Eddie Triplisky right now is amazing. I mean, he's literally putting the ball where he wants it to go.
Yeah.
Chris wanted to talk about the other side of special teams, though. Chris wanted to talk about the negative special teams.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to play close games every single week, you can't keep getting field goals blocked. You can't do that. And I watched the replay a few times when I got home. I couldn't, when you're sitting in the stands, it's hard to see what happened. I watched it a few times. I actually don't think it was blocked poorly. I think he was way too slow in getting that kick off. I mean,
Yeah.
That wing has to block the guy inside. He still put out a hand, try to slow him up a little bit, but it just took him forever to get to the ball. You can't do that. And the UCLA game, I hate to tell you guys, it's going to be close. That game is going to be close in the fourth quarter. The Notre Dame game, I hope, is close in the fourth quarter. You have to be able to make kicks, especially in a 1-point game where it's a chip shot. It's getting really frustrating at this point.
0 for their last 4, haven't made a field goal since Penn State. And in the Penn State game, you missed the one in overtime that started this skid and was a huge miss. Yeah, that has got to be figured out. It started as poorly as it could start, right, against LSU, that missed chippy. And then for a long time, it was like, hey, they got it figured out. Here we go. There's a kicker that you feel really comfortable in, and now lately it's the block against Maryland was an inexcusable mistake up front. I think I'm with you more on that it was kicker error than the line against Nebraska. I don't know if you could get more of a hand on him, or if the inside can slide out more or whatever. But that guy comes flying around the edge all the time, and they don't block him all the time. So yeah, that's got to be figured out.
27-yard field goals. 27-yard field goals are extra points. You really don't even need that 2.5 steps. Just speed it up a little bit. Yeah,
Mark wants the foot planted where you just swing your leg and kick it with your toe straight.
Like they're doing warm-ups. Absolutely. Like they're doing in warm-ups.
Probably can't drop kick it if you have to. I don't care, but you can't keep losing out on those points. You just can't. And at some point, Lincoln Riley's going to have to go full Dan Lanning and just go for it on 4th down all the time, because what are you going to do if your kicking game is that unreliable? That's a problem. I mean, it would not surprise me if the game Saturday comes down to a field goal, and that scares me because there's no reason to have any faith in that unit right now.
I mean, one of the best USC teams ever had to kick 5 field goals to beat a UCLA team like that. It comes up. Well,
let's talk.
One of the other things in Nebraska, I think that's we're talking about the USC run game, and kind of some new like pre-snap stuff that we saw, both with running kind of that jet sweep motion all the time, and then kind of the fake toss to coming back around inside. Both of those to me felt like that's what Miller needed. Like that's holding the end, that's holding that backside defensive end, and would have been so helpful for Miller. So I'm curious if that's bye week wrinkles. Hey, we can put this stuff in now because we've seen that we need it here, or if it was specifically this'll work well against Nebraska. But either way, that stuck out to me all game as, boy, would this have helped a Miller Moss offense run game. I mean, there's plays in there where that motion holds that defensive end or that edge defender enough to where, yeah, he makes the play, but it's 4 or 5 yards downfield. It's not coming straight across and a tackle for loss there. That was one of those things that kind of really caught my attention of this worked very well. And I'm not complaining about doing it, because clearly SC was comfortable running those in that game, and Nebraska did not enjoy defending any of those things. And I'm curious if that continues forward, if that's something that's still in there for UCLA, Notre Dame, because that's a tough thing to defend when you add the quarterback's running ability plus the ability to give it to Zachariah Branch. Mekhi Lemon ran that a few times, and then when Woody gets that ball and can go quickly, he's really effective running that.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's been interesting. Obviously the offensive line has struggled a lot this year, and they've had some misses in the run game, some high-profile, important misses in the run game. But they've run the ball pretty well almost every week. USC won't commit to it most weeks, but you look at the final numbers, and you're pretty consistently seeing seeing Woody Marks averaging 6, 7, 8 yards a carry, and the team will have 150 yards rushing, but they only attempted 23 rushes. I mean, that offense. Lincoln Riley said before the season he thought this was an offensive line. It's a bigger group. He thought they could move people off the ball, thought they could run with them. And the truth is that he has been able to when he wants to. So finally against Nebraska, he made more of a commitment to it. I hope he keep it up. I mean, we'll talk about the Bruins in a minute. Their run defense looks pretty good statistically. I bet USC has success running the ball against UCLA if they commit to it. I bet they'll have success running against Notre Dame if they commit to it. So hopefully they will. All right, let's talk about the Bruins. It's not a fun thing to do, but we have to do it because it's coming up this week. Let's start with this. All three of us have watched a lot of USC UCLA games over the years. I think my first USC UCLA game was back in 81, and I've been watching, all of them since about 83, 84. I've seen a whole lot of really bad UCLA teams beat USC, right? That happens. I've seen some pretty poor UCLA teams almost beat USC teams that were dramatically better than they were. This game is never a gimme. No game's a gimme when you're 5-5, but this game is never a gimme. I'm a little bit worried about this one, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. So either talk me off the ledge or tell me I'm right to be worried, and then we'll all commiserate together. Mark, what do you think?
I was feeling like you're feeling right now, Chris, before last week's game. And then I saw USC commit to the run game against a good run defense. And I was like, you know what? USC can do this next week against UCLA. UCLA statistically has a better run defense than Nebraska's, but not that much better. So I'm feeling better this week than I was last week. One, because I know USC can run the ball when they want to. I saw enough from Jayden Maiava at quarterback that he will create a little bit additional stress on that UCLA defense. It's what, 6 point? I think the line opened at -6 for USC right now. I'm going to go against the grain. I have a feeling USC is going to take all of that energy, all that frustration that's been built up throughout the year, losing all those close one-score games. I have a feeling it's going to be a blowout. I think USC is going to score 30 points, and they're going to do it on the road, sort of. And they're going to hold UCLA to 14 points.
30-14.
30-14.
Okay, Eric, obviously we'd both be thrilled by that. I'm not yet ready to drink that Kool-Aid. I am deeply concerned about this one because I know that UCLA only plays hard one game a year, and this is it. What do you think? Is Mark right? Is this going to be a fun Saturday night? Am I going to be okay having to stay up till 1 a.m. to watch the end of this game, or am I going to be upset and then lose sleep all night after going to bed late because of my anger? What's it going to be?
Do you remember last week in 10 questions when you asked us about should the point spread be what it is? Should USC be favored in either of the games or especially against UCLA? And I told you, can I get back to you next week after we see UCLA at Washington and USC against Nebraska?
Yeah.
And Mark told us about how UCLA should be favored in this game.
He did say that. I remember that.
So this was sort of the outlook that I was waiting to see. How did USC play against Nebraska? How did UCLA go up and play against Washington? We talked about how USC hasn't been able to score 30 points. UCLA can't score 20 points. They've scored 20 points in 3 games this year. One of them was 20 points. Like they are not running up points against USC unless USC's offense gives them 14. So full stop, UCLA is not getting to 20 points in this game. USC is going to score not 30, but they're going to get to 27, 28. And so 27, 17, something like that in this one. I can see UCLA's run defense has been good. They've given up 17 rushing touchdowns somehow, which is like a huge number. So I think teams have played them knowing we don't need a ton of points. I mean, we don't need to do a bunch of stuff offensively. Let's hold on to the ball. Let's get to 21 and let's win. I do share your concern that weird stuff happens, and looking back to last year when USC decided not to show up for this game for some reason for a quarter and a half, that's concerning. But I think a lot of these guys were on that team. You've got some still Southern California guys that I think can carry you a little bit. UCLA is going to play hard. I know they've stuck with some teams this year. I don't see how they outscore even a USC offense that has really, really struggled. And I know we're going to watch some 11-9 ridiculous upset now after we said that, because I see Chris's face on how he's taken all this.
At the end of this, I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to go along. Okay. Let me just say that up front. I am. I've just seen it too many times. I've seen it too many times where a garbage UCLA team that doesn't even play hard most of the time comes out and plays with their hair on fire, because the only thing they care about is beating USC. It's the only thing they care about. And Deshaun Foster is a product of that system. He's a product of the UCLA. All we care about is beating Big Brother. And so I think we're going to see the best out of UCLA. I don't know what that means. Their offense, the UCLA offense, is garbage. It's absolute garbage. They can't run the ball a lick. They average like 3.2 yards per carry. They barely score any points. They can throw the ball a little bit, but they've also thrown 11 picks. They turn it over all the time. The UCLA offense is terrible. For UCLA to win, they're going to have to get some timely turnovers from USC, which, by the way, is not something that's impossible to imagine. They're probably going to have some USC breakdowns on special teams, which, by the way, isn't impossible to imagine. And then they're going to have to make it a tight game and have something go right for them at the end.
Don't forget that USC is going to throw punches or personal foul penalties or whatever at the first team that kind of gets under their skin, right? That was disappointing in the Nebraska game too, where that got chippy and USC's getting flagged.
Yeah. You have a first and goal at the 2, and then you decide to get in an altercation. That's unbelievably stupid. And I like the guy who did it, so I'm not going to call him out, but geez. I don't know, guys. I think USC wins the game. USC is a better football team, but USC is not a good enough football team that you can feel comfortable no matter who they're playing. And they're playing against a UCLA team that will play 7 points better tthan they are. They do it almost every time. Not every time. I mean, you still have the 50-0 surrender game. You have Pete Carroll's pizza game. There were plenty of times where UCLA didn't show up and got beat down. But most of the time, UCLA shows up and they're 7 points better than they've been the rest of the year. That's probably what we'll see. For whatever reason, UCLA has played better in the Rose Bowl against USC than they played at the Coliseum, even though they don't have a huge home field advantage there. But they'll have some fans. Usually UCLA has about 18 people in the stands. This time there'll be 30,000 UCLA fans there, probably 28,000 USC fans. That's a different story. USC is going to win. It's not always going to be pretty. It will still be close in the fourth quarter, but UCLA's offense can't get it done. And so that's my prediction. But guys, this one makes me nervous because being 7-5 with wins over the rivals is not a good season. But having at least six losses and losing to UCLA, that is unfathomably bad. I mean, that is, I don't, break my television, take away my phone so I can't even see or hear anything about college football. That's the way you'd have to respond to that. So I'm nervous, and I don't want to be. I want to be confident.
The last 2 times USC and UCLA have played in the Coliseum, USC has looked like crap. And we go back to the game against DTR, and you can go back to last year's game where they didn't show up.
No.
So, like I said, I'm going with my gut feeling based on what happened last year at home, where they did not show up to play. It wasn't just for a quarter and a half, Eric. They didn't show up. Caleb Williams didn't show up to the post-game presser. There was no pride in that team whatsoever. I think there's going to be pictures of that all over the locker room this week. They're going to take some of that animosity, some of that from last year. They're going to take it to the Rose Bowl. I don't think asking USC to score 30 points is a big ask. I really don't, even this year.
I have a feeling, I hope I'm wrong on this, but I have a feeling that the USC game is more important to UCLA than the UCLA game is to USC. And I think that's true because USC is recruiting a lot of guys from, there's some California guys, there's some West Coast guys on the roster, but increasingly they're pulling guys in from other states. And nobody in any other state has any respect for or regard for UCLA football, nor should they. They haven't done anything in 20 years and maybe more. And so those guys, I don't see UCLA as a big deal, whereas UCLA is still recruiting a lot of kids from Southern California where playing USC is a big, big deal. USC need to take this game a lot more seriously than they did last year. I assume they will, but
interesting enough, I asked Greedy Vance after the game against Nebraska. I go, you're a transfer. Do these rivalry games that you're not, they weren't born in, brought up with, is it more advantageous being a transfer coming into these types of games where you're not playing on emotion? And he's like, he gave me a really good answer. Like, I've been in a part of enough rivalry games just to play the game. But the point you're bringing up, Chris, it's correct. How many players on USC's roster grew up in Southern California saying, I don't like those colors that the Bruins wear? I mean, it's that type of thing that's been missing from this rivalry for, I would say, 5 to 10 years now.
Yeah, the rivalry has, there have been a couple of good games, but the rivalry really hasn't been chippy since Jim Mora was around because Mora came in with that attitude and he was so irritating and so in your face. And so there was a while there where I think the rivalry came back to what it felt like in the 80s and maybe early 90s. We'll see. I hope, I hope our guys show up Saturday because they need this win. And I don't know if they realize that the UCLA team they see on tape may not be the UCLA team that shows up Saturday. I hope they understand that.
Go stand on the midfield logo until the UCLA team shows up. Let them know whose house it is.
All right. Eric, any final words?
No, I don't like that you put such a depressing end on this one, Chris.
And take some responsibility yourself.
Yeah, you bring all your like hang-ups and hardships with this. You just throw them at people that are here to have a good time and watch this. And I don't know. That's
not why they're here, Eric. I'll tell you right now why they're here. They're here to listen to us complain because they're upset. So that's not true. But go ahead. The small number of USC fans that want to hear some positivity, why don't you give them some right now? Go.
Get to WeAreSC.com. $1 for 7 days. See all the UCLA coverage. The game thread against USC UCLA going to be phenomenal. No matter if it's Mark's blowout or what Chris is hoping for, a close loss. I guess I'm not totally sure why he's going there. $1 for 7 days, then 50% for the year. I know Chris is trying to say something. I can't hear him right now, but WeAreSC.com. Get there.
The Stanford moment right now. Chris just had
one guy in this show has ever rooted for a close USC loss, and it ain't me. All right, guys, big game. If you want to salvage the season, you have to beat the Bruins, and it really would be nice just to get them a beatdown. They deserve it. They really do deserve it. So maybe we'll see it. I'm going to be positive. You know what? I'm going to be positive because I feel chastened by Eric. USC wins big Saturday. Don't even worry about it, people. You'll be able to turn your TV off in the third quarter. USC will be up so big. Is that what you wanted?
Okay. No, now you jinxed it. Look, you weren't gonna find a right answer.
All right, fine, whatever. I guess we're done. There's no right answer, so I'm going to stop talking. Big game. We'll see you next week for an even bigger game. Until then, fight on, everybody.